Okay, I'm going to review a little bit more of the Camper MVC project which is created with Spring MVC. All right, so I've cloned a repository. The CIS 2232 2017 2018 Part 2. This is the repository I was planning on using for the rest of the semester. Okay, so I'm opening up one of the projects from here. All right, so I'm going to open up the Camper MVC and review, just to go through, see how the add works and see how the edit works for a camper. All right, so a lot of these Spring MVC loops they're very consistent, same kind of thing. I access an action which is specified in a form action or via a hyperlink, and after I access that, the controller takes over. All right, so in this case, I'm going to be looking at the controllers, which are always in a .web package. All right, so the camper controller, this is going to have camper add, camper list, camper edit. All right, so you see the edit and the add are the two I'm going to look at today. All right, so first off, let's get the project running. Okay, so first thing to get it running, I'm going to have to run make sure my database is created. All right, so my create database script is in this folder. It creates a Canes database. You see a camper, code type, code value, and a user table, and some data in there. All right, so to run that, the previously created MySQL root connection will be used. If not, you have to create a MySQL connection, which you can call this. All right, so hopefully if there's any problems with that, it's under topic 0, getting that initially up and running. Okay, so that is now created and refreshed, and I'm going to run my project. Okay, so assuming that starts, I'll take a quick look. So I'm going to go to the list view of campers, and then from there I'm going to add a camper. So when I click the add button, there's going to be a hyperlink on that page. So let's take a quick look at the list view, and the views are always in web pages, webinf, and timely folder. All right, so any of my camper related HTML pages are going to be in the camper. All right, so the list view contains my add button, and here it is here. Okay, so a quick review. It's a standard view set up with timely. It has the header, which has includes a lot of JavaScript libraries included. The body header contains the menu, and the rest, this part here, is basically the difference between most of our views. They each have also a footer. All right, so my list view at the top has a hyperlink tag, which looks like a button, but you see what it does. Its timeleaf href, right, is set to go to camper add. So that goes looks in the controllers for a method which has a request mapping of camper add. That's what this one does. So if that matches, the hyperlink is clicked, the camper add method is invoked. All right, so this method accepts the model and the HTTP session as input parameters. So these are going to be injected into this method. All right, first off, we check to see if the user is logged in. If they're not, if it can't find a user object in the session, it just sends them back to the welcome view. Otherwise, what we have to do is add a new camper. Right, so we put a camper. We'll create a new camper using the default constructor, and we just put this in the model. All right, so whenever we get to the view for adding a camper, it expects to find in the model an object with the handle of camper, and that's how it gets. That's what's used in order to associate the input fields on our form with an actual Java object. All right, and then once we're done, we go off to a new view, which is camper add. All right, so that's going to be the camper folder and the add HTML page. All right, again, standard top, but the difference is this one contains a form with a camper object, and here's where I was saying that since we put that in the model, TimeLeaf is able to grab a hold of that object and use it for this input for the object associated with this form. Okay, so the rest of the input fields are specified here. We've got a th value, right, and a name. So last name, first name, and date of birth. All right, so we've got a name, th value. We have a max length on here. Whoops, there we go. My application just finally started, and here it is. So to run this, I have to put in a name and log in. All right, so it takes me to the list. So here's this add button we were talking about. All right, so when I click that add, it should take me to this point that we're referring to here. So add. All right, and here we are looking at our view. All right, so I've got a name, first name, last name, date of birth. All right, I could have also used, instead of using name and th value, I could have just used th field. And that'll associate the name and the value with the camper date of birth attribute. And they'll work exactly the same as if you have name and value. All right, so that's my input field. Whenever I click the submit button at the bottom, it will look at the form. The form has a th action. It's this action that gets submitted whenever I click the submit button. Okay, so then it says here, go look for a method in one of your controllers that matches camper add submit. That's the request mapping. Okay, so it comes over. All right, and I know that since it's /camper, it's going to be inside my camper controller. All right, so camper, so delete. Here's my add submit. All right, you see the request mapping matches for add submit. All right, and this one accepts some different parameters. I get the model. All right, I also have a model attribute and the session. All right, so the difference with this one is the model attribute. What they do is if you put this as a parameter to my method, it'll take the model attribute, which was the camper on that we put in the model before we went to the add page, and is associated with the input fields of the add page. This will allow me to get a hold of it. So what it'll do is it'll take the input fields off that form and it'll put them into a camper object and inject it into this method. All right, so I'm doing my add submit. This is what's going to actually trigger it to save to the database. All right, but now I have my camper object, my first name, last name, and date of birth are all going to be completed. All right, I validate it, run the validation on it, and check that what's provided is what is required is provided inside my camper object. All right, and if there's no errors, all right, no errors. If there are errors, it'll send me back to the add page. But if there aren't errors, it'll continue on to do an update. All right, so here's the model piece of the application. All right, the controller is invoking the model and saving the camper to the database. All right, so I'm using a method out of my camper DAO class to update it. All right, that's great. This method will put the guy into the database, and then the next step is to reload the list of campers from the database. So it'll just make sure that I get the absolutely latest array list of campers before I go back to the list page. It'll put those campers in the model and then returns to a new view, which is camper list. All right, so camper list HTML comes back, and then it shows me the new list of campers. So I can see this running. If I take a quick look, if I try to save, all right, there's some validation failed. If not, I can put Joe Landry. All right, date of birth has to be after 2000. YYYY-MM-DD format, and I save them. All right, so I've got Joe Landry was just added, and I'm back to my list page. So that's what happens whenever you add a camper, the process you have to go through. So I'll just leave the video at this point, and we'll move on next to JPA. So the next video will be in adding JPA, spring data JPA to this application.